Hey, this is Professor Homa. Welcome to EX12 Random Egg. And this could be whatever exercise number we use, but we're going to create a random egg on our stage, and we're going to put it at random positions, random rotations, and even give it a random color. And just to show a sample, I'll just play this quick just so you see what I'm talking about. But we have a Make Egg button, which is just a component button, and you're going to click on the button, and it's going to make an egg appear on the stage. And when you click it again, it'll make it appear again. It's not going to add multiple eggs, but it'll make it appear again, and it should have a random color. It may keep the same color occasionally, because we only give it a couple color choices. So how many color choices you give it, it's that many random colors. So we don't have that many colors here. Orange, purple, blue, green, just a couple here. And notice it's at random rotation, random position, and random color. So that's all we're going to do. And what we're going to do here is we're going to basically instantiate a class of an egg, meaning we're going to create a movie clip of an egg and create a class of it, and then we'll add it dynamically to the stage using our add child method to do that. And we're going to do that when we click on the button. We're going to add child, and then when we put it on the stage, it'll be at a random XY position, and eventually it'll be at a random rotation, which would be 0 to 360 degrees, and we're going to do that by using a random number method. And I don't have to hide this from you. You could check out the code that we're going to use for now, but you could see that we're going to instantiate the egg, meaning we give it an instance name through a variable. We give a variable which is basically going to be its instance name, and that's how we're going to make a new egg appear on the stage, and we're going to make a class. We're also going to have to make a random number, and we're going to do that inside our function so that it's actually generating a new random number every time we click the button. Otherwise, it would just make one random number and stay that way. So that's what we're basically going to do. The hardest part is really all this stuff here. This is really the custom colors that we have to make ahead of time, and it's kind of a little time consuming because we have to make basically a class of a color, and then we apply the color later. So we're basically going to translate our rotation and our positions through a random number. So that's what we're going to do with this. So we're going to get started with this, and I'm going to go File, New, and we'll just make sure your ActionScript 3, and we're just going to make standard page size, standard background color. And one thing just to point out, other than just having this button here that we're going to use from our components palette and put a label on it called Make Egg, is we're also going to make an egg, and this is really the egg. Here it is from the library. It's nothing special, it's just kind of an oval, and we're going to mess with the anchor points a little bit to make it more egg shaped, and we're also going to put a gradient on it so that it looks like it has a little highlight on it. And keep in mind, this highlight is also a transparent highlight so that you could see through it, so that when we change colors it'll still look like a white highlight. Otherwise if it was white, it would cover, when we do the color, it would cover over that. So that's something, kind of a little cheating thing that we're going to do, just so, but it requires that we have a white background to do that. If we went to our stage and changed the background of our stage, that wouldn't work. It would fill that in with a different color. So that's why we're going to keep our stage white for now. But that's all we're going to do. So we're going to kind of just work with some of these building blocks of some of our Flash code that we're going to use, and a lot of this is JavaScript type code. It's almost exactly the way we'd use it with JavaScript too. So what we're going to do is I'm going to stop working on this one and go back to my brand new one, and I'm going to save this as, I'll call it EX12, and I'll just call it Random Egg, and I'll put my last name on here, and I'll call it 2 because I think I had another one. So here's my random. So I have nothing here right now, and the easiest thing I could do first is just go to my components palette, and I could bring my button to the stage. So I'll bring my button to the stage. I'll just bring it down to the bottom left of the stage. Now I didn't make my egg yet, but I figured I'd do this first because this is the easiest part. And I'll just make a little label on it that says Make Egg. And the next thing we could do, as long as we're going to do that, we'll give it an instance name, and I'll just call it Egg Button. So that part's done. I think in the instructions that was actually second. What we're going to do now is make an egg. So I'll do a green egg to start and see how that goes. But or maybe I see I have a blue color here. I'll do a blue egg. And what I'm going to do is just use an oval tool and make sure that you have this on. Make sure you have object drawing on so that you don't have that dotted inside kind of stuff, that it's not a shape. It's just going to be object drawing. So I'm just going to make a circle. I'll make it nice and big to start. If you go into 45, it should stay a circle. And that's all I want now. Now it doesn't look like an egg right now. And what I'm going to do is actually use my direct selection tool in Flash, which if you've worked with Illustrator, same kind of thing. Now if you have a hard time seeing this, you can go into, if you go to your timeline, you can actually go up here and turn on outlines to see that. Now this light green is kind of hard to see, so you can even go on your layer icon and change that from being this green color. I'll make it red or something that's easier to see. Now it's a little easier to see. And I'll even zoom into this a little bit so I could see this a little better. And you could see when in Flash, I don't know, it's hard, they're real small, but when you make anchor points in Flash, or when it makes a circle, unlike Illustrator that does 4 anchor points, this one does 8 anchor points. So we don't even need, some of these anchor points we don't even need. So I'm going to go right into my pen tool, and it's very similar to Illustrator, and get rid of this one and get rid of this one to start. And I'll scroll a little bit, and then I'm going to take my direct selection tool and just drag up and bring that up. Now it's a very pointy egg right now, so I'll just drag this out a little bit, and I'll drag the other side out a little bit. And if you've worked with Illustrator, it should be very similar to that. And this egg doesn't have to be perfect. I'll zoom back out a little bit, and maybe I'll drag this up a little bit more. And you could certainly tweak this. You know, I could drag these out a little more to make it a little more rounded like an egg, but that's about it. That's for a little egg, that's fine. Okay, so that's my egg shape. I'll turn my outlines back on so I could see this. It's not perfect, but it's fine for now. You could tweak it a little more if you want. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to give it a gradient color. And to do that, I have to go in my color palette. I'm going to go into my color palette, and where it says solid color, I'm going to change that to be radial gradient. And right away it makes it black and white, or white and black. It goes, and you could, with the gradient, you could even switch this. I'd recommend doing this first. Switch these around, like drag them so the light color is on the left and the dark color is on the right. That'll at least give you more of a highlight kind of look. And that's not, doesn't look like my egg yet, but then you can click on here, and I'm going to go back and make it blue again. I'll just use a standard blue in here. And also, another thing I can do is double click on the white, and it's white right now, but I'm also going to turn the alpha down to 0 so it's transparent, and make sure, and it'll be transparent white, and you won't see that until you put it over something. And that's really all I have to do with my color. And what I'm also going to do is go into my free transform tool, and underneath here there's a gradient transform tool, and I'm just going to move the center point down a little bit, and you could even scale this a little bit. I always forget which one it is. The second one is like a scale, so I'll scale that down a little bit. You can mess around with these a little in different directions, but basically you can move this so the highlight's a little different. So there's a rotate, a scale, and this kind of stretches it, so I'll scale the whole thing down a little bit so the highlight's a little smaller. And this isn't the easiest tool to use, but so I'm just putting in kind of a bottom right corner, and that's really it. Then you can get off that tool. So that's all you really need to do with your egg. And now all that I'm going to do is make it into a symbol. And you could make it smaller or larger or whatever, but I'm going to make it a symbol right now. I'm going to go modify, convert to symbol, and I'm just going to call it egg. You don't have to call it egg MC. We'll do that when we make it an instance. But remember, we are using it, and if you're not seeing this, make sure you turn on advanced and make sure it's centered. First of all, make sure the registration is in the center, and then also you're going to click this button, export for ActionScript, and you don't have to do anything else. Leave the class name as egg, leave that as egg, just simple egg. You don't need the MC yet, and I'm going to hit OK. And when you do that, you'll get this message, which will seem like you did something wrong, but you don't, so just hit OK. It's fine. You'll see this message every time, so just hit OK, and that's it. And in your library, you'll see egg, but you'll also see this AS linkage there, which actually tells you that you made it into a class. So the class name is egg, and you're going to have to remember that when you make a new instance of it. And you could scale it. Well, you don't have to do anything. I'm actually just going to delete it right now, but the egg we bring out of the library is fairly big. So you could scale it in the library. I could delete it here. You can actually go in the library if you'd want to. If you go in the library, you double click here, there's your egg. If you wanted to scale it here, you could scale it here and make it a little smaller. I just recommend that that you keep it on that center point. This is the kind of the center point of the library, and I went into the library this way, not by double clicking on the scene. So you just want to make sure you keep that centered on its little point there. And again, we could rescale the egg any way we want to, but for now you could go into your library and do that. And if you had to change the color for whatever reason, or you messed up your gradient, you could always go back into your library and change that. So I'll go back out on scene 1, and notice I don't have it on the stage. The only thing on the stage is my egg button. So, and they're both on the same layer, which is okay, that's fine. But what we're going to do next is we're going to start some code. So let me take a break here, and then we'll start working with our code next time.